Okay, so this is one of my favorite subjects actually, is the 1915 World Exposition in San Francisco, California. So I thought I'd do a little bit of narration. What can I say? I mean, this is one of the most studied World's Fairs out of all the World's Fairs. It's the most intriguing, as some of these buildings still stand, like here at the Palace of Fine Arts. I know that this World's Fair has a lot of mystery to it. A lot. It's possibly one of the biggest clues that we have to the old world, to the mysteries of the reset civilization. I mean, I feel like San Francisco in general has a lot to answer for, as far as the inconsistencies and the anomalies within the timeline. I mean, just the Palace of Fine Arts alone, the fact that you can visit it, that you can see it, you can see all of the craftsmanship that went into it. But what isn't talked about as much is the other side of the World's Fair, which is the more disposable part of it, but still a lot of mystery to it. And when I mean disposable, I mean the street vendors, the food, the fashion, just the overlooked things. I think we need to look more at the mundane and less at the buildings. The buildings have been studied extensively. Not to say that there isn't still more knowledge to gain from them, but I mean, let's look at the little details more. And maybe in a future video, I'll do a different format. I'll do a non-slideshow format, and I'll show just more detail about the everyday life in San Francisco at this time. There's just so much we don't know. There's just so much that just got lost along the way. I want to give a shout out to John Levi for pointing me in the direction of this particular collection of photographs. This collection of photographs was from supposedly a family photo archive. So that's another thing I want to say about these photographs, is that these aren't staged photos. These aren't, these are just personal photographs from someone's family album, supposedly. So this actually gives us a better perspective, as it's taken from a more vernacular photographer. These aren't pictures that were produced exclusively for promotion or even for historical archives. This was actually from an everyday person's perspective. So I think that that's actually a boon. That's actually a gift to the research community, because we have insight from just pictures that would have normally have gone lost and forgotten in time. But we were lucky enough that these were saved. These could have been sitting in somebody's living room or basement or attic or bookshelf for decades and decades. These pictures are over 100 years old. Think about that. This was the 1915. Okay, it's 2021. These photos are over 100 years old. This was supposedly what San Francisco looked like over 100 years ago. Not too many years after the Great Earthquake, what some people refer to as the Great Reset of San Francisco, and they built all of this in a short amount of time. They thought it was a good idea to build all of this in an earthquake-prone zone, in an earthquake-prone area of the world, shortly after supposedly one of the greatest earthquakes on this continent in recorded history. Think about that. Why would they go through the effort to build all this stuff if they thought that there could be another giant earthquake? Now, I know when people say that these were temporary structures, it's a little hard to believe. Even if these were temporary, why would they put so much effort into a temporary structure in an earthquake-prone area? No retrofitting, no protection, nothing. And then, as other people have pointed out, they already look old. And what about the trees? And what about just the general landscape? I mean, you're telling me that they built around the trees? You know, these buildings were already there. They gussied them up one last time and they tore them down. It's not a big deal. It's not a mystery. These ones, they survived the quake, and then they were fixed, they were gussied up, they were refacaded, and then they were torn down. I mean, we're not just talking about temporary structures here, we're talking about structures that were possibly damaged, possibly aged. You know, they were given a new life, a temporary new life, and then they were torn down. This wasn't about showing off. This wasn't about, temporary. How could you have? It just doesn't add up. It just doesn't add up. And we're going to figure it out one of these days. We're going to find some definitive proof that these buildings were much older than we're told. And that's all there is to it. Yeah, there's supposedly construction photos. There's supposedly demolition photos. It doesn't add up. Okay. Yeah. And even if that were the case, it doesn't make any sense. Because we have examples of these kinds of buildings before the World's Fair. In the 1800s, we had buildings like this in San Francisco. San Francisco is hiding something. San Francisco is one of the most important cities in this whole investigation of recent cities and old world technology. I mean, and not just San Francisco proper. I mean, the whole Bay Area, the whole San Francisco Bay Area. There are so many old buildings and old structures and old roads and old monuments. And you wouldn't believe what I found and what I'm going to show in future videos. I mean, I'm just getting started here. Okay? And I'm not joking around. There's so many things that people have not seen in this context. They have not looked at in this light here in the San Francisco Bay Area and Los Angeles. Okay? If there's anybody watching this video from the Los Angeles area, please leave a comment about what you may have found in the greater Los Angeles area. Okay, there's stuff on the Central Coast. I mean, there's stuff in this whole country. But what's going on and what happened in the San Francisco Bay Area, to me, is the most intriguing because I'm from California, as some of you may have guessed already, based on my content, especially on my Instagram. Okay, so now I'm going to be primarily focused with San Francisco. Now, of course, I'll talk about other places in other videos, but San Francisco is definitely the most alluring. It's the most captivating to me personally. Okay. There's just so much we don't know about San Francisco, and I'm determined to find out more, to find more photographs. You know, I feel like public libraries are an untapped resource, at least for me right now, because of the lockdowns. But I'll get around to that eventually, looking at the archives, looking at the microfilm in the archives, and scanning and archiving, digitizing analog photographs and text that give us a better picture, that should give us a bigger tool bag to work with as far as resources, as far as lost photographs, as far as lost information about the San Francisco Bay Area between 1850 and 1920. Because to me, that's the pivotal years. That's the pivotal epoch, 1850 to 1920. And some people may disagree. Some people might have an opinion of a more important timeline. But to me, that's the important gap there. It's 1850 to 1920, especially in California. Well, I should say especially America, but specifically in my case, San Francisco. I mean, just look at it. Just really take it in for a moment and tell me that that was temporary. Why? Why would that only exist for 9 months? Seems kind of silly to me. Especially in 1915. But this is what I'm talking about. You don't see these pictures as much. This is the more temporal. This is the more disposable part of the World's Fair. But still strange. Still very strange. These castles, these heads, this thing here in the bottom left corner, some type of arena. I mean, really take it in, pause the video, zoom in, screenshot, look at it later. Very strange stuff. Just very strange. Especially here in the center top picture. With the big statue there. There's a lot going on other than the buildings. Obviously the buildings, the fountains, the towers, all very interesting. But like I said earlier, let's focus on the minute details. Let's focus on just the banal. There's a lot of information in what is normally overlooked. So, in closing, I'd just like to say that this has been a revisit to a previous video. Obviously, you won't be able to find the original unnarrated version still, but as with all my unnarrated videos, I wanted to come in and narrate this one. So let me know what you think in the comments about San Francisco in general and the 1915 World's Fair. Thank you. Goodbye.